everyone, I'm Nadella Puput Erlangga from 5BB class of English Department State Polytechnic of Sriwijaya, and in this chance I would like to share some information to you about communicating findings. Alright, so for today we are going to talk about communicating findings, and there are four subtopics that we are going to talk about. The first one, we will know about the definition of communicating findings, and we are going to also know about the reasons why we should do communicating findings. And the third one, we are going to know how to communicate findings effectively. And the last one, we are going to know about the important formats. Right, without further ado, we are going to know about the communicating findings definition. What is communicating findings? Communicating finding is the part of the research process where research outcomes and outputs are made public. And reasons why we should do communicating findings, because there is a need to. The first one, evaluate research impact. The second one is to strengthen research capacity. The third one, we have to improve the dissemination and the packaging of research for continuing knowledge. And the last one, there is a need to strengthen the networking between researchers, policymakers, and practitioners as standard evidence-based practice. Alright, so we have known about the communicating findings, the definitions of communicating findings, and we also have known about the reasons why we should do communicating findings. And the next topic is how to communicate finding effectively. First, know your audience. Absolutely critical for effective research communication is a clear sense of audience. As previously stated, the process of impact can be simplified by reducing it to 3 questions, which also scientists can ask themselves about their research. Who are the users of our research? How do I engage with them? What has been or could be the effects of this engagement? It is the first of these 3 questions, who are the users of our research, that we are interested in here. The clearer research themes can be about who the research is aimed at, then the better their chance are of producing findings and outputs that will appeal to those audiences right from the early planning stage. And therefore, it is important to invest time and effort in trying to, first, be specific as possible about the intended audiences. Second, think across traditional categorizations of end users. And the last one is understands the interests and needs of the intended audiences. Right. The second one is being specific about audiences. When invited to consider who is this research for, it is not uncommon for researchers to think in fairly general terms such as policymakers or practitioners, researchers, or families. While these kinds of broad categories can be a helpful shorthand to give a sense of the general intended audience, the danger is that they mask a huge amount of important detail and complexity. Getting clear about intended audiences then requires an engagement with the complexity of the different groups and subgroups that operate within the broad categories of, for example, policymaker or practitioners. This process is about trying to work from the general to the specific, from the broad brush to the fine grain, from the undifferentiated to the nuance. It means remembering that users are in one sense everyone, and thus in another sense no one. They need specifications to be meaningful. And this process of specifications can be helped by thinking about potential audiences not only in terms of the specific of their professional or societal role, but also in terms of the specific of how interact with the research that will be generated. And the third one is work across traditional boundaries. Alongside the need to think about audiences in terms of specific, there is an additional challenge. The need to think about audiences in terms of breadth. For example, across traditional categorizations. This need for breadth is important where researchers, either individually or collectively, have developed a tendency to work on issues relating to particular groups of research users. In the context of social sciences generally, Brewer touched on this when he talks about how most social scientists have preferred working either with what Burrow calls organic publics, local community-based and non-market groups without much access to formal power, or with people in these various systems of formal power such as governments and policymakers. Brewer's argument is that this kind of either-or approach needs to be replaced by an openness to both or and because the obligations to address weak problem within late modern political economy implicates engagement upward as well as downwards. So the obligation to address weak problems within late modern political economy implicates engagement upward as well as downward, with the formally powerful as well as the formally powerless. So the implications for educational research wanting to improve the communications of their research finding are twofold. Firstly, when identifying who a piece of research is for, it can be helpful not only to think specifically about particular types of audiences, but also think broadly in terms of different categories of end users. Secondly, echoing the point made earlier about the indirect nature of research communication. When thinking across different categories of research users, it is critical to recognize the wide range of intermediary organizations that operate within and across all of the categories. For example, media, specialist media, professionals, corporations, and entrepreneur consultants, think tanks, policy communications, and national government organizations. And the fourth one is understanding their needs and their interests. As well as being specific and thinking across boundaries, it is also important that researchers seek to understand their intended audiences. So asking, who are the main audiences for this research, need to lead into considerations of what do we know about the concerns, interests, and needs. These further questions matters because of the earlier conceptual arguments about seeing research communication as a learning type rather than a transfer type process, and research users as active consumers rather than passive recipients. So researchers' decisions about what and how to communicate need to be informed by an understanding of their intended audiences in terms of, first one, interest that they have that the research could support, activities they undertake that the research could inform, concern they have that the research could address, communication preferences they have that need considering, timescales and schedules that they have that need remembering. Getting clearer about these kinds of issues will mean that later decisions about presenting key message and developing outputs can be far more specifically targeted for the intended audiences. Alright, so that's all about how to communicate finding effectively, and we are going to move to the next topic, that is reporting formats. There are two kinds of reporting formats in communicating the findings. The first one is the written format, and the last one is oral format. So the written format came into many forms. For example, it comes to written report and also data board, flyer, and poster. And for the oral format, it comes to formal oral presentations, and also roundtable with partners. Alright, so we have known about the definition of communicating the findings. We also have known about reasons why to communicate finding, and also how to communicate the findings effectively. And the last one, we have also known about the reporting formats in communicating the findings. So I think it is the end of the video today. I would like to say thank you so much for listening to me, and see you on another chance. Thank you.